Hey, Davis.
How's it going?
Good, man.
Hey guys.
Taylor?
Taylor, how are you?
Doing well. You doing all right,
Are you muted?
Lauren?
No, I can hear him.
Oh. I was gonna say I'm not known for my quiet tone. You guys all doing all right?
Doing well. I think the last thing I saw from the weatherman this morning was chance of severe storms this afternoon. It looks like they have not quite materialized.
Yeah, they know that.
Here.
My one stand-up joke, if I ever went on a stand-up, would be to talk about the paid weather app. That's when they actually tell you the real weather. That's what they've been trying to convince us all along. It's like, why is there a paid weather app? That's when they actually give you the right weather. I'll pay for it. Lauren, I appreciate you switching out those numbers so fast for me when I threw that curveball of changing up numbers on you.
No problem at all.
Hi, this is Dee. I can't see my little green square on this. Do you know I'm on this thing?
Hey, D. Let me see here. I do see you, D.
Okay, good.
I do. You
Okay.
show up as a guest. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. think I see Tim too. How are you, Tim?
Excuse me, how can I get this bar off this part of the screen, or is it just gonna be there? The one that has the time and the mic and all that? Can I move? I can't seem to move it.
I wish I knew how to help you, Dee. It's tough.
Okay,
It's
oh, well,
tough.
it
It's tough
vanished and then it
looking
came back, so
without
I don't
looking
know
at your
what's going on.
screen. I will tell you, when I go to full screen mode, it shows me the bar at the top, and it shows shows a bar at the bottom. So
I guess I'll have to Google this later and see what I need to be doing.
Hey, Julie.
Yep.
There's a time delay. I'm on my phone, and I'm trying to get this thing to work for the screen. I
Okay.
can see y'all. Can you see me?
No.
cannot.
Okay. I can see all of you, and there's a time delay between when you're talking and when I hear it. So I'm here and I'm watching, but I'm going to see what I got to do to get on.
This doesn't make sense.
I agree.
This is Tim.
Okay.
I have to do it on this, but then they're talking about being on a screen. It's not on the screen.
You put it on the screen.
What screen?
The television,
How do I get this on the screen?
type in that code that they gave you.
No, when I called the number that I gave it to them on the phone.
You did what?
I called.
Look at that, there's two numbers.
There's only one number.
Is that you, Bonnie?
Yes, it is. I've got you on my
If you
phone, but I
called
can't
it-
figure out how to get on.
If you called in on the phone number, that's just
Uh-huh.
going to be audio for you. You're not going to see anything.
Okay. I'll see if I can. So where do I go? Wait a minute. I never got, okay, hold on. Let's get this up and running. Oh, read it wrong. Okay, we'll give this a shot.
Something just popped up, Tim.
Yeah, I
see
just
video.
popped up on my screen. And it's telling me my microphone isn't working.
Everybody here?
I think
Yes,
Hang on.
yes,
Yeah.
sir. I think so.
We got a quorum. Okay.
we have a quorum for sure.
Okay.
This Tom, is that,
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
Hi, Tom.
I think.
Julie, Gerard, and Tim are also on, Tom. I think Mark is out of the country.
oh, that's right. He said he was going to be in Peru, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. Are we ready to call the meeting to order?
Yes, ma'am. And I think I'd suggest doing a quick roll call
Good
just because
evening.
there's so many phone numbers.
Okay.
Betty
Okay.
Brown.
Here.
Can we get a call,
Good evening.
list?
This is
Oh,
Gloria Jones.
hey, Gloria.
Suzanne Courier.
Whose number ends in 93?
That might be me.
Okay. Who is that?
This is Gloria Jones.
Oh, okay.
All
All right. Whose number ends in 17?
That's me, Betty Brown.
Okay. Whose number ends in 35?
Cheryl Bennett.
Okay. Whose number ends in 65?
That's me, Kathy Brown.
Okay. And whose number ends in 16?
Suzanne Courier.
Okay. Whose number ends in 39?
That's me, Tim.
Okay. Whose number ends in 49?
Jones, Sam Jones.
Sam Jones. Okay. Whose number ends in 66?
Guess it didn't work.
Whose number ends in 66?
That would probably be my wife, Denise Horner.
Okay. And then I have 2 that end in 77.
Bonnie Busby.
Bonnie Busby and Jack Kurtzinger. Hey, Jack.
Yep.
Okay.
Hi, Jack.
And okay. I think we got everybody but whoever that 66 is. So. Okay. All right. I'm going to call to order the meeting of the River Plantation MUD on April 8th at 6:33 p.m. First item on the agenda is the presentation regarding the capital improvements in the bond election. Taylor, I'm going to assume that's you.
Yes, I think it is. I think it's either me or Lauren.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess if everybody has the meeting packet in front of them, all participants on the call, we went over this at last week's meeting. Prior to this one, not a whole lot has changed. Some of the values did drop a little bit as I was going through and making sure that items were fixed, making sure all the numbers matched up and things like that. Overall, the way it breaks down is the Series 2022 bond application, it would be for $6,710,000. This would cover the projects in those highlighted years 22 through 25. It goes through wastewater treatment facility rehabilitation phase 1 and 2, 1 being the cleaning and repairing major repairs. 2 would be providing some industry standard upgrades for the district to kind of bring it into a better compliance and allow it to operate better.
And that would be what?
Go ahead. Was there a question? Okay.
Why is it not in compliance?
I didn't state that it was. It is in compliance as of now. However, it has had trouble keeping within its ammonia limits. Currently, the plant was under 4 violations last year and is now under enforcement due to these violations. So as it sits right now, it's coming back into compliance according to Richard, but we have not yet seen that happen. Proceeding on, electrical upgrades. This would be a replacement of all the MCC equipment, the motor control center within the building at the wastewater treatment facility. All this equipment is well outdated. A lot of it's within that 30-year-old range. It's beginning to rust because of where it's located, and the wastewater treatment facility being a corrosive environment. It's within a building that is not insulated, not air conditioned, so Texas summers can have extreme effects on items like this. Moving down to the water plants, the first years you've got the evaluation/demolition. Should it be provided that demolition would be appropriate, $132,000 is budgeted for that. I did, however, go over a conversation with Richard that gave me a little bit of red flag today, that the East Plantation's ability to provide.
I'm sorry you broke up.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Going back, talking about the water plant number 1, the evaluation/demolition. Have demolition costs for $132,000. However, I did have a conversation with Richard that was a little bit concerning. That needs to be discussed. The interconnect with East Plantation and their ability to supply water during construction phases when you're repairing plants and things like that may not be up to par should something happen. So, for instance, we're talking about
because you're not fixing your well.
Sorry, who is that Preston?
Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah, I thought so. I just wanted to make sure we were clear, Preston. Now,
can you repeat the question?
This is Davis Bonham, Preston.
David who?
Davis Bonham, Preston. We've spoken on the phone a few times.
Yes, Davis. I'm very disappointed in you, but continue on.
Preston, public comments are after the presentations and after the board speaks. Thank you.
Well, you're commenting on East Plantation being unwilling to, respond to you, so I'm going to comment on that, Julie. If you don't like it, you can disconnect me.
That's an idea.
I would like to personally clarify, we were not talking about East Plantation not being willing to accommodate us. My understanding of East Plantation is they are capable fully of servicing themselves. The extra strain of adding 1,000 connections may be a little overwhelming to your system, which would end up causing issues in both districts should we need to rely on an interconnect. So, moving forward, water plant number 3 electrical upgrades. Currently, the MCC sits in a building that is prefab particle board, has holes in it. It's not appropriately protecting the electrical equipment, so a lot of that cost is to replace that building, get it in a climate-controlled room to give better longevity to the electrical equipment that exists there now. And then we have water plant number 2 recoating. The paint is clearly starting to chalk and deteriorate on the ground storage tank and the hydro tank. So those are those values. Continuing on, you have the fire hydrant and valve survey. 50,000, that is just a number that I've gotten from operations companies for the amount of hydrants and valves that I've seen in the CAD drawings. And then 150,000 for rehabilitation should we find a bunch of breaks and things like that that need to be repaired so that you could properly isolate your system. Those will need to be removed and replaced. Moving forward, the year 2022, you have sanitary clean and televised. That is to evaluate the entirety of the system, look at all your pipes, see what's good, see what's bad, see what's immediate, see what can be pushed out. That entire phase is then phased over the next 10 years for repair, along with the manholes. You have manhole repairs in the 2023 year, and then the next one would be in the 2026 year. This is due to repairing the most important manholes that are failing, should we find any. And then the same with the sanitary, and then just phasing it out over time to make sure that we replace all of the pipes. The pipe you have in the ground is asbestos concrete, vitrified clay, and truss pipe. These pipe systems typically have a 50-year lifespan, and you're out of that 50-year lifespan for most of the district. All the subdivisions besides the Mosswood were built in the 60s, late 60s, so they're out of date by about 10 years. Moving forward, the storm sewer, the same with this, clean and televised. Then do a channel survey evaluation. The district has 4 channels. This is for the 2 main channels. The other 2 channels in the district are adequately serving and are not in desperate repair at this time. The 2 channels we're talking about are the Mosswood Ditch and up near Ravens Point. And then the Plantation Creek concrete channel. Those would be surveyed by a licensed surveyor and the evaluation for all the repairs that need to take place. And then we would go straight into the storm sewer rehabilitation. The district has a bunch of corrugated metal pipes in the ground that have been decaying. Manholes have been, or sinkholes have been appearing everywhere. Based on my visits to the district and talking with the board members as well as the general manager, these are dangerous conditions to deal with. Obviously, with the district's flooding problems, it's not going to solve the flooding problems, but it always helps to get your water out faster before it starts backing up into you. This would evaluate the pipes, and it would be remove and replace with concrete pipe, which is the standard. The lifespan on concrete pipe is really, it's 50 years is the estimate, but it's unlimited for if it's taken properly care of. We have plenty of districts with concrete pipe in the ground that's 70 years old, still operating adequately. Mosswood Ditch Rehabilitation Phase 1 and then Phase 2. This ditch looks like a natural creek behind the houses. Actually, one side of it is concrete lined. It's buried under dirt and trees and things of that nature. The other side is a lot of overgrown trees that don't allow water to convey properly, restricting the flow, causing backup in the system. Future would be Plantation Creek Concrete Channel 1 and 2. Both of those were pushed out a little further because as it sits right now, the concrete channel still conveys water. It doesn't have any major blockages. Some of the repairs are a little more immediate, but at this time, they're not the top priority. The next page is the bond series breakdown. As we discussed, Series 2022, pending bond authorization, would proceed in the year 2022 for the amount of $6,710,000, and there are the projects included in that. Series 2026 would be $4.7 million, and then Series 28 to finish the remainder of the work as proposed in the 10-year CIP would be $4.44 million. With that being said, I want to turn it over to Lauren to touch base on tax rates. He is the financial advisor for the district.
Okay, thank you, Taylor. Good evening to you all. This is Lauren Morales with RBC. We prepared 3 different schedules to match up with this CIP program from Taylor and the 3 different bond issuances that he just mentioned. So the first schedule looks at what the potential tax rate impact would be from only issuing the Series 2022 bonds, and that would be really the most immediate tax rate impact. The second schedule looks at the tax rate impact from issuing the Series 2022 bonds and Series 2026 bonds. And then the third schedule looks at the potential tax rate impact from issuing the Series 2022, 2026, and 2028 bonds. And I want to make a point that, you know, the assumptions that we use to try to measure this or predict what the potential tax rate would be, you know, we take into consideration the possible growth in your taxable assessed value. We've assumed an annual 3.5% growth. Your district experienced over 6% growth last year and over 13% growth the year before. So we always try to use conservative assumptions when we're producing these schedules. But, you know, obviously can't predict what your taxable assessed value will be in 2026. So I think really most of our emphasis should just be on the first schedule. That's the one which will be, again, the most immediate impact to your district. And you can see in this schedule for a bond issuance of $6,710,000, we estimate that a debt service tax rate of 27.6 cents is what would be required and sufficient to pay the debt service on a 30-year issuance of $6,710,000.
Well, Lauren, this is Gerard. I do have some questions for you on the schedules.
Yes,
this
sir.
is what's going to be used in the presentation, right, for the awareness of our community, our voters, our owners. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yes, sir.
Okay. You'll be presenting that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So here's my question. I look in the Prop A bond, the order, and I see a number of 56 million as the total for service debt. And I look at the three schedules that you've prepared, and they don't seem to me to align. So does an additional schedule need to be added to the presentation?
Well, these schedules only represent kind of the 10-year CIP. And you're right, if we just look at these three bond issuances, the total debt service, you can see that on that third schedule, is about $35,024,000. The amount that's in Proposition A goes beyond the 10-year CIP, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. And this is, I don't know, my understanding all about the bond election. You know, the CIP certainly feeds into the bond election, but it's primarily bond election. So again, I would like to ask that the total be included so that it's understood the number that's in the Prop A bond order.
And that number, I'm looking at the previous schedule we prepared, that's 56,146,000, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Lauren, is that it?
Yeah, I'm happy to go into kind of further detail or answer any questions on these schedules.
Any board members have any questions?
No, I really didn't have any other questions, Julie. Just want to make sure that's aligned so that folks are voting know what they're voting for and not some subset of the amount, you know, based on a projection that
Well, but
is
they're
really
only
unsure.
Lauren, correct me if I'm mistaken, but aren't they only going to be paying on the bonds that we draw each and every time we do an issuance of the bond?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's not what's in question. The emphasis that I'm making is that the bonds that will be authorized would be based on a formulated model of 56 million, because 25 million is being authorized by the bond, a little over 25 million.
Okay. Okay. All right. Does any other board members or anyone have any questions?
No.
Okay. Tom?
Excuse me, Miss Julie?
Yeah, hang on. I'm going to get to the public in a second. So do I have any board members that have any questions before we go to the public questions? All right. Now we can take questions from the public.
Hello?
Yes.
I wanted to ask you a question. Will manhole refurbishing take care of our backup sewage problems that we're having in our community?
Ma'am, if I could just ask real quick before Taylor answers the question, just as members of the public, just because the people who've called in, we can't see your names. If you wouldn't mind giving your name with the question, that would be very helpful.
Yes, sir. My name is Gloria Jones, and I asked the question about if refurbishing our manholes, if that would help with the sewage backup problem that we have in River Plantation.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Hey, Ms. Jones, this is Taylor Reed, the engineer. Yes, this would help along with the cleaning, televising, and CIPPing of all the lines. What we do in that process is jet all the lines to get all the stuff out of it. Any grease buildup, they'll go down there with, I've seen them go down there with cutting wheels and all sorts of things to make sure we clear the lines appropriately so that they can fully flow. Once that's done, it goes in and we fix any major repairs that need to be made, such as crushed pipe that's limiting flow, sags in the line over time because pipe and ground naturally settle, any sort of cracks, infiltration by tree roots, all the above get fixed. And then what we do is we come in with what looks like a long fiberglass sock. And it sticks to the inside of the existing line that doesn't shrink the capacity of the line and prevents any sort of new infiltration, and also adds structural support for that line. So long answer, but in the short, yes, it would resolve the issues of backups throughout the district.
I have another part to my question, if I might ask. Do other communities that are our age, are they having similar problems with their sewage?
So I have 4 other districts that are right in that. All their homes were built in the 1970s. Over the past 10 years, 10 to 15 years, we have systematically put in place a phasing system in which we've rehabilitated all of their lines, so that they sit nowadays with fully rehabbed lines with no issues of backup.
We have no issues in East Plantation.
Okay. Well, have we addressed this in the past to refurbish our manholes here in River Plantation?
My understanding was, talking with the general manager, there was a smaller job of roughly about 20% of lines that were CIPP. I don't believe any of the manholes were addressed, but the lines were addressed. We would verify that based off of the televising, but that's my understanding to date. But those were, in my understanding also, that those were the major lines, not any of your side runs that would affect the homeowners.
Okay, can I have one more question?
Certainly.
This is still Gloria Jones. From my understanding, if we don't need all the money at any given time, we won't spend the money. It will be over a 10-year period. Is that correct?
That's correct. As you can see from my 10-year CIP plan, that would propose to spend roughly $15 million in the next 10 years. Those are ranking items from a 10 being the worst to a 1 being not so bad. All the items that I proposed in that were well above a 5. That being said, you would have that would leave a remaining 10 million bonds for future boards 20, 25 years down the road to be able to fix things such as ground storage tanks. Those have a lifespan of about 40 years. Water wells, you just put in a new water well at number 2, water plant number 3 could have an issue. Issues at the wastewater treatment facility. It's 50 years old. Things are going to break as they come up. So this is all in future planning. Obviously, the 10 years is just to get you back up to speed, operating smoothly. And then looking future down the road, that's the reason for the additional money, so that a vote doesn't have to occur.
Yes, sir. One other question. Is there any way that we can, as a community and as our acting board, protect the future of this bond, this bond be earmarked for specifically our sewage problems that we are having in River Plantation, which we don't need to be looking back. We need to be looking forward. What happened New Year's Eve with raw sewage running down the street, I don't want to happen to anybody ever. We don't want that to happen in this community. We don't want people to know about it. We want to repair what we can, but you can't drive a car for 50 years and never change the oil. You just have to be proactive with this, and we've got to correct our problems.
In regards to your earmark, TCEQ requires that all bonds are for water, sewer, and drainage. They cannot be spent on anything else. We have to go through a very rigorous process that requires myself, a professional engineer, the attorney, and the financial FA to sign off on this, meaning that we have to state and certify that we are going to spend these funds in good faith and that all the projects that we are proposing fall under that jurisdiction. And the TCQ spends roughly 90 days rigorously reviewing that with all the cost estimates, plans, language, so on and so forth, to evaluate the necessity of the bond and see if they approve it. So all this money would be earmarked for water, sewer, and drainage specifically, and cannot be for anything.
And I can also add that the proposition specifically provides for the use of the bond proceeds for water, sewer, and drainage purposes, and that's also something that the Attorney General's office will
have
confirm.
a copy. Okay, very good. One other question: how much is it going to cost each homeowner in River Plantation, and an increase in tax, for us to move forward and correct our problems, not just for us, but for our grandchildren that are out here? Just the percent of tax, of what will our increase be?
I think I can answer that. So again, initially, just for the first issuance, and based upon where we estimate your taxable assessed value will be, and we've also made a conservative estimate as to what the interest rate on these bonds will be. Our estimate is that the increase in the tax rate would be 27.6 cents.
Okay.
With that said, Lauren, is there a number that's actually in the Prop A that states that per $100,000 in value? I believe it's $686 per 100,000.
That's correct. That's correct, Gerard, and that's because, as you were pointing out earlier, what's required to be included in the Proposition A language is a debt service schedule, which I would say is kind of for illustrative purposes only, which shows all of the debt being issued. You're authorizing this much debt. If you issued all of the debt, how much would it cost to pay?
But that's really what we're going to be voting on. We're going to be authorizing the little over $25 million, right? So
yes, sir.
That's what I, as an owner and a voter, am very interested in. What is the board authorizing in that amount, not some lesser amount, which may be best case, but instead, what is the board authorizing? And I think what was touched on earlier, this is authorized in perpetuity. So it's not just this board, it's any future board will have
Any future.
access to seek bonds against that 25 million.
And I
That's
have
right.
one more question, and I promise I won't ask any more questions. Will the board tell us what will happen if we don't do this bond?
I'll give you my opinion. This is just really my opinion.
Yes, sir.
I did vote against, this is Gerard Smith. I did vote against the bond. What I think can happen is really there's a number of things, but most importantly, I think that we delay another year and we come back with an appropriately sized bond election. The numbers that were being assessed earlier on were a third to a half of the amount of the bond that's being asked. So my hope personally would be that Prop A would be defeated and that instead we would come back in a year. I do absolutely think that work needs to be done. I do think that we need a bond. Just personally, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the bond being that high of an authorization.
When Gerald, when I look at the numbers, I'm kind of surprised that they're not asking for more money with all the pumps. You've seen those pictures of the broken pipes in the raw sewage that we're subjecting our neighbors to?
Yeah,
I'm surprised that we're not asking for more money. And something that has been not attended to for 50 years is going to cost a lot of money to bring it back online.
right.
But I
right.
understand your fear. I understand your fear. But if what you told me earlier that the Attorney General would have this copies of the bond and what the bond is supposed to be earmarked for, why would we have fear in getting the amount in stone and wood? Because we don't have to spend it. And from what I've read, that the board is not going to do that. It is only as an as-needed thing. And if we're really trusting the Attorney General to protect our vote in that bond, then why do you have fear, Gerald?
So, yep. So two parts to that. First of all, the numbers really are coming out of the engineering report and now the CIP. And so initially in the preliminary engineering report that was issued, there was about $7.5 million for sewer and drainage. So that's the number that we were initially looking at. And you know, there's still some questions. This was discussed in the last meeting. Still some questions. You know, we really don't know how much it's going to cost until they actually televise the lines and look at them and see. So right now, there is a lot of best estimates. So
well, when will
I would fall back. When will they finish those? That would be a question for Taylor.
Yes.
But right now, the $7.5 million is really where I'm looking at. So that's to answer the first part of your question.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. This is Timothy Stepp.
Well, I think there were two parts to the question, but go ahead.
Can you hear me, Mr. Gerald?
I can hear you.
My question is there an alternate engineering report, in other words, a second opinion? And when the labor is actually done, the physical labor, how is that meted out? Is that an open bid? Or is that handled in some other way? Or is it open bid to the best contractor provided cost?
So, Julie, do you want to respond to that? I'm not aware of another.
I'm going to let Taylor respond because it
Yes,
is.
sir. This is Taylor Reed. I can respond to that. We are required, all districts are required that if any amount of 75,000 required to bid it publicly.
Tom, I hate to do this to you. We're getting a little bit of feedback from you, it looks like, and I can tell you got your hand raised, and I don't know if you see that too, Julie?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I was saying was that all construction projects that are assumed to be over $75,000 must be publicly bid and awarded based on the lowest bidder. There are instances where we can roll bids pending contractors' reputation, their financial ability, things of that nature. But all projects are publicly bid over $75,000. Over $25,000, we're required to solicit at least 3 bids, and under $25,000, we can just award to the contractor of choice.
And the engineering report, is that just from one engineering group, or is there a secondary report that might have a different opinion?
I'll take that. We as a board have a engineering firm that we engage for our projects and to manage the district, or to manage the projects of the district. Vogler and sorry, I forgot the last. Spencer are the engineering firm that we evaluated earlier this year and that we went with for current.
So you get one point of view as far as what repairs need to be done and estimate of cost. That's I appreciate your answer.
Well,
That's what
estimate of cost. Estimate of cost is based on the bids that come in. So that's their projected estimate of cost, but the real bids that come in are what the real cost is going to be. So.
Okay. And all these estimates are based off of our entire firm's bidding history regarding these sorts of projects. And so this is not based off of just my own opinion. This is based off of historical data. We bid these projects every day. We have bids being open for these sorts of projects, and we keep a running tab of the cost breakdown per project. And so if you look at the cost estimates, it's broken down by linear footage of pipe and things of that nature. It's not just a lump sum value being thrown out.
Can I
appreciate you Gloria Jones again?
Can I go?
Jones again?
Okay. Go ahead, Gloria.
Okay. Well, are we not addressing our drainage problems too? I mean, Jill, it's not just a sewage problem that we have. We have serious drainage problems in River Plantation. I want everything addressed, and if you think that's too much money, then do you have a better plan for the drainage?
So no, I mean, I'm going off of what the engineers are projecting. It's just at which point in time do you look at the number? Because I think it's risen now. It was initially 7.5 million. Taylor, correct me if I'm wrong. Now the overall drainage and sewer is now about 12 million. That's your current estimate, but you really don't know until you televise.
And so how much of that, Gerald, is sewage and how much of that is in drainage issues?
Oh, give me, I have to go back and look at.
I can answer it real quick, Gerard. 8 million of it is sewage, and 3.5 million of it is drainage.
How much was it initially, Taylor? In the engineering report.
Give me a couple seconds and I can pull it up.
Miss Gilmer, I'd like to add something if I could.
Okay.
You know, regarding the entire election, there's no issue or series of bonds that is going to be issued without the approval of the board, right? So to begin, although the election will be for 25 million, we're going to start with this first issuance. It's estimated to be 6,710,000, right? And then the second issuance, you know, we'll address it when we come to that point in 2026. We'll look at the projects that are included in the summary of costs, and the board will make the decision at that time whether or not to issue those bonds. So I just want everyone to realize that even though the election may be for 25 million, the 25 million can't be issued without the board's approval at each step.
I have a question. Robert McElroy. Hello?
Go ahead, Robert.
Yes. So if we issue bonds for the first series and we have money left over, can we pick up projects in Series 2 and then decide, well, let's just go to Series 3 because basically, can we get this done in 2 series? Move projects around? Or is it locked in with the bond?
Absolutely. When you sell bonds for water, sewer, and drainage projects, there are some limitations where you may have to go back and get additional approval from the TCQ, but those funds will be held in a capital projects account for use only for water, sewer, and drainage purposes.
Taylor, did you get those numbers?
If not, Brown, I have a question to ask you.
Yes, sir. It was $7.5 million was the original estimate when we
If you
first.
break it down, sanitary sewer was
Sanitary
$2.5
sewer
million.
was $2.5 million, and storm sewer and drainage ditches were $5 million.
Correct. $2 million for storm sewer and $3 million for drainage ditch.
Just
This is Betty Brown. Can I ask a
that
question?
information, Gerard, just for your information, I had only visited the district one time when we were first putting it together, as this was hurry up bond authorization to get onto the May bond election. And now that I've been to the district quite a few more times, I much more stand by my numbers for the 10-year CIP, which is still continuing to evolve, but are much better numbers.
Yeah, definitely understand that. And that's why, again, I'm in favor of a bond, but I just think it's, too much right now based on.
Okay, this is Betty Brown.
Now.
Can I ask a question of Julie?
Sure.
I would like to find out when the bond passes, how soon would we get the money? And what happens if the bond doesn't pass?
So the earliest will be, I'm guessing, approximately 6 months to a year, depending upon when they're issued and when we can find a buyer for them. Lauren can probably address that a little bit more accurately than I can. But if the bond does not pass because of the current situation of the district, we will probably, if any major repairs have to be undertaken, it will have to be assessed through additional water increases in your water and sewer rates. Okay, so if, as an example, we have a $1 million repair that has to be made in the next year, everyone's water rate will increase with 940 connections, will increase about $405 a month. So we can either pay it over a period of time, or we can pay it in our monthly water bills. So
the water bills would increase by $400 a month?
Yes, ma'am. If we had a $1 million, and here's the other thing. The other thing is most of these contractors do not work on credit. So they're not going to give us 18 months, 2 years to pay these projects off. So we're going to have to generate enough money, enough revenue to pay for these projects as these repairs take place or need to take place.
Julie, can you tell us how you calculated that $400 per month? I mean,
sure. Take $1 million divided by 900, divided by 12 months, divided by 940 connections.
So $1 million divided by $1 million divided by 900 is about $1,111.11. So how you further break it up per month? Okay, if it was a one-time payment, it would be $1,100. So I'm not sure how that calculates.
Okay, well, that's okay. So then, whichever way it calculates out, we'd have to go collect $1,100 from everyone. So.
So I got a question. If it doesn't.
Hey, Tom, can I address Gloria's question about, I did vote for the bond. I will say that I did vote for the bond. I do not like seeing my biggest investment, my home. A lot of people already understand I do have a backup problem at my house, but I didn't get on this board for me. I got on this board for the community. I have lived in this community over 30 years. My husband grew up in this community, and I don't like seeing this community falling apart. It's just like a car. If you don't maintain it, it falls apart. It quits running. If you don't maintain your home, it falls apart. It quits running. This district, unfortunately, has not been maintained for whatever reason. I can tell you by the pictures I have seen and by the places that I have visited. I can tell you this district, and if anybody would like to go with me, I will gladly show you the things I have seen. Okay. And Gerard, I'd just like to ask you a question. What date did you do a tour, and with who did you do a tour of the district facilities?
So I did a tour of the district facilities with Tom and with Richard, and it was shortly after I was elected.
You saw all the facilities?
I saw the 3 water well plants and the wastewater treatment facility. We did not walk through the ditches. We did not walk the lines.
Did you open any of the manholes?
No, we did not.
Okay. Did you open any of the buildings at any of the wells?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Gerard, did you see any of the sinkholes in the neighborhood?
No, I haven't. And I think there was supposed to be a map that was put out. I never got a copy of that map to even to where to go look.
I was really curious, out of the board members we have now, who on the board is against the bond election this time?
So the vote was 3-2. Myself, Tim, and Tom Goodman and Tom Vandiver voted for it. Gerard Smith and Mark Robin voted against it.
This is Robert McElroy. Do you have a minute for a comment here?
Well, hang on. I don't think Betty's finished. I think she was about to ask something else. Hang on. Go ahead, Betty.
I just wanted to know if Gerard knew how these sinkholes were being fixed in the past before this board, because the sinkholes are being fixed by people just pouring, the district just pouring more dirt and gravel in there, and it sinks right back. It's not a permanent fix. And our water's having problems. We're getting gravel in there. These people are, there's a man here that's got a granddaughter that was playing in one of the sinkholes by a swimming pool. It's been broke for 3 or 4 years, and they just keep pouring more dirt on it, which immediately goes back into the ditch.
No,
it's
yes,
not being fixed, and I'm concerned.
I've heard that, and again, I do think that there needs to be a bond to address these issues. I absolutely believe that. And before the vote, the 3-2 vote, I voiced to the board that I'd be willing to support 10 to 15 million if they would come down from 25 to 10 to 15 million, that I would support it. And the board decided no, they wanted to go with 25 million. So I absolutely do think something needs to be done. I just don't think it's at the $25 million level.
Julie, can they come down on the bond? Is there a way to come down on the bond?
Not in this election. What would have to happen is it would have to be, if it does not pass this time, we can come back in November and we can ask for a bond election for a lesser amount. The problem with that is twofold. Threefold actually. One, we have a cost associated with that we have to pay with each election that we enter into. We also have additional costs of the financial advisor, the engineers, and the attorneys for each additional bond election. And thirdly, people are going to eventually get tired of hearing, my God, didn't they just 6 months ago ask me to vote for another bond election? Now they're just look at Conroe ISD. How many times have we voted on bond elections for the football stadium, AstroTurf, the scoreboard, the whatever? I don't even vote on that anymore because I'm tired of hearing about it. People get.
Can you tell me how much we've already paid for this election? For this?
The election itself, the cost is split between all the people, I guess the MUDs, the entities that have. So most of what we pay to the county is about 10 to 11,000 normally. And what we've paid the attorneys and the engineers and the financial advisors, I'd have to sit down and figure that out, Betty.
Okay, so I was just wondering, so if it takes us 8 months to get our money and this bond doesn't pass and then we have to go through it again, and it's another 8 months, it could be 2 or 3 years, correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
So
And we just have to hope that we don't have anything happen in that time period. That's
but we
correct.
do have $300,000 or $400,000 in the budget for repairs.
We've also used most of that this year. We only have, Gerard, in the bank, we only have $702,000 total in the banks.
Right.
How much of that has been in legal fees?
How much of what? That's what I just
How
said.
much
I
we
don't
spent on
know.
legal fees so far? 200,000 last year. How much this year?
Well, 200,000 was also spent on several different issues.
Right.
So
There's
we had demand notices, we had things associated with Charleston, we had a lot of different things that were going on with the legal fees last year.
Well, that's
Okay?
why we need to get out of
Year is
this
the
problem.
exact same thing. We have different issues. All of this is not spent on the bond election.
I know that. Yeah, but I'm saying what you're saying, we have less money. And why do we have less money? We're spending, last year, I think we spent more money on legal than we did on engineering.
Can I tell you why we have less money? Because as far as every year that I have been on this board, we have operated at a deficit. We have never not raised taxes in over, I believe it was 10 years. I may be incorrect on the number of years, but several years, let's put it that way. We were able to raise the taxes, if I'm not mistaken, Davis, it was 0.22 cents this last time. So we don't, because the taxes were not raised, we can only raise them at a small increase per year. Okay?
I'm saying the legal expenses are out of hand. And one thing I think needs to be resolved that hasn't mentioned yet is Charleston Park bond. I don't know if it's in the numbers yet, but that needs, the Loring should cover that to say, yeah, we're going to be paying 8.3 for the next 40 years or what, so we can get Charleston Park taken care of. And with the Charleston Park, my question would be, we've taken $511,000 plus legal expenses to buy Charleston Park. If we approve that bond, that money that's been paid out of our normal maintenance should go back into the operating budget here. And if it isn't, then there's something wrong, because you should have asked for $3 million on Charleston Park to do the proper reimbursement of our maintenance that we paid for. So tell me where we can go help that out.
Let me just, if I can respond to that on the proposed par amount of the park bonds. The TCQ limits the amount of park bonds that a district can issue based on its total taxable value. So the par amount cannot exceed 1% the total taxable value of the district. And the proposed the proposition amount is slightly in excess of 1%. So TCQ rules would not allow the district now to issue the full par amount that's in the proposition. We would actually be limited under the TCQ rules to a slightly lower number. Cannot increase the amount.
Okay. Can we use some of that bond money to reimburse our normal operating expenses for where money was taken? $511,000 plus legal fees that were taken in the purchase of Charleston Park. Can we get that money from that bond back into our operating and maintenance account?
Let me just say simply that park bond proceeds can be used for the acquisition of a park bond site. And
we've already spent acquisition money, so that's what we want is reimbursement. That's what I think should be done, because I think Charleston Park in this community needs to be resolved, and that's the first priority. Okay, that's my take on that.
Mr. McElroy, I will tell you, we have been in mediation and we are working on a resolution to the Charleston issue.
That's good. And so I'm saying, now the next thing with the bond approval, can't you go borrow money against that bond in anticipation that you will get funds and approval? Can you produce, can you, and this is a lawyer question, can you get money early rather than wait to 2022 to go out to market to get your money?
So we can issue a bond anticipation note, but we cannot issue a bond anticipation note until we have bond authority to ultimately issue the bonds to pay off the note, right? So the process would be a successful bond election, then the submission of a bond application to the TCQ. Then once that application was declared administratively complete, then we could go to market with a bond anticipation note, which would be redeemed using the proceeds from the sale of the bonds.
And would that save us some time?
Can you,
It
Betty Brown, can you
would.
tell us what the interest rate is on the bond?
Ma'am, every time my clients ask me that, I tell them if I could predict where interest rates were going, I'd be sitting on a beach somewhere. I can tell you that. Yeah, well, how about this? Let me let Lauren. let me let Lauren comment on general market conditions for municipal bonds right now.
Okay, I was just asking. I wanted to find out if it would be cheaper interest rate on the loan than it would be on the bond.
Oh, yes, ma'am. And I think it's a very good and legitimate question. We just have someone who's more qualified than I to answer the question. So I thought I'd punt over to the financial advisor.
Sure. Yeah. You folks on the phone might have noticed the United States Treasury rates have ticked up a little bit over the last 60 days. The 10-year Treasury is currently between 1.6 and 1.7%. That's a big increase. Over the course of 2020, we saw interest rates continue to come down during the coronavirus. Your bonds would be issued federally tax exempt. Municipal bonds are issued federally tax exempt, and they're measured against an index that's known as the Municipal Market Data Index. Demand for municipal bonds has remained high, which is a good thing in your case, and has generally kept municipal interest rates low. All thousands of macroeconomic factors would go into influencing the interest rate on your bonds. One of those would be any increase in the federal income tax. Any increase in the federal income tax would make purchasing federally tax exempt municipal bonds more attractive. So any increase in the federal income tax rate you would imagine that would increase demand for municipal bonds. We had a bond sale for a rated district earlier this week, 25-year sale, and that district was able to achieve an interest rate of 2.4%. So I would expect we will explore the possibility with the rating agencies of achieving an investment grade rating for your district. But for the purpose of these schedules and our sort of conservative assumptions, I've assumed that at least your first issuance would be issued non-rated. And with that, I've assumed an interest rate higher than 5%.
Do our legal expenses anywhere that are anywhere from 5 to 20% of our income? We have in other words, we're paying legal expenses. Does that go into a factor in determining our grade? In other words, will we be triple B, B, or triple A? I'm saying if you look at 2020, we had $190,000 or $200,000 on about a 1.1 million income and revenues. So here you're spending a large amount of in other words, are we a district that has a lot of litigation activity that would downgrade us and have the potential for not being a good investment?
I wouldn't expect that to be one of the major factors that the rating agency would review. If your district did receive a rating, I would expect that it would sort of begin at the triple B minus rating, which is the first tranche for investment grade. And they would review your district as a whole. The most important factors would be the size of your district, the taxable assessed value, which represents the tax base, the tax base, which would be paying the property taxes and your debt service tax rate. Also, the variety of your tax base, residential, commercial, the concentration of your top 10 taxpayers, and then from there, other factors, including your budget, whether you're running a budget surplus or a budget deficit, the size of your reserve funds. Do you have a general fund, reserve fund? Do you have a debt service reserve fund? Are those reserve funds fully funded? So that's a process that we, as your financial advisor, really lead the dialogue with the rating agency, and we'd have to kind of move down the line to get towards that. That's really a conversation for when we're much closer to the issuance of the bonds. Before there's even been a successful election, it really wouldn't make any sense to be talking to a rating analyst about that.
Miss Julie?
Yeah. Hey, can you hold on? We've got another board member that's got his hand raised. Do you want to let Tom talk for just a second, and then I'll come back to you?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and Tom,
Can one of you guys, unmute Tom?
Tom, can you unmute yeah, there you go.
Well, this is weird. It's been so long, I forgot what I wanted to talk about. But at any rate, I do want to, since I'm on now, I'm going to tell you, I did vote for the bond, and to a degree, I thought it was more than we needed. But the reason I went ahead and did it, it's somewhat like a line of credit type thing that's out there. We're not planning on spending it all. It's there to back us up, but we'd already spent the money. If we postpone it, it will be at minimum 6 to 7 months before we get the chance to bring it back up after spending several thousand more dollars. We're looking at least 8 to 12 months probably before we can fund. So what we effectively would do by not passing this one, we would effectively put any repairs into 2023, most likely. I could be wrong, somebody can correct that. But that's what I think we're looking at if we don't go ahead and go forward with it now. A lot of the speculation that's going on as to the who's and whys, that's our job as the directors of this MUD district to control it once it gets passed. That's your job as the citizens to decide if you want us to go ahead and fix this stuff, or do you want to go ahead and try to do it through your utility bills? That's what we are. So I'll just shut up at that, but I think we're beating a dead horse and going back over things that have already been addressed.
Could I respond to Tom's comment there?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay, Tom, I'm going to say this. We're going to be paying monthly, say average $200,000 house, it's $686 per 100,000. We're looking at better than $100, $125 a month. I'm saying if you went for a rate increase, like Julie mentioned, if you did $100, you get over $1 million out of 12 months, out of 940 homes. Okay, and all that money goes into the work. When you pass a bond,
I wanted to find out how you're
paying
getting your formula, because
you're paying $2. You're getting $2 for $1 worth of work. And the reason I say you can go up $100 because I saw a water bill in Houston for $14,000, and it was $207 for a water bill and sewer bill in Houston. And here we're sitting at 80. You could still be under that with $100 increase.
I know that Julie is a CPA.
You can spend $200 a month.
$40. So I wondered how you come up with a figure of $1,100. What is your profession for Gerard?
Was someone speaking to me?
Yes, I'm
not sure who's
Gerard. I wanted to find out. Julie's a CPA, and she came up with a figure of $440.
Well, I have Excel just like Julie does.
$1,100.
And if you multiply 12 times, okay.
Julie, I think you're muted.
Excuse me, Miss Julie?
We don't need to sit here all night.
Yeah.
seeing
Do
how
I
many
have anybody
computers-
else in the public that wants to make any comments or ask any
I,
questions?
So
I
I'd just
do.
like to respond to the question to me. I'm sorry, it
Yes.
took me a minute to pull a calculator up. So if you took $400 a month, let's say for 1 year, so 400 times 12, and then multiply, that's 4,800, multiply that by 900, that's $4.32 million.
And that would cover the first part of that would cover a lot of the first phase of the projects that need to be done.
And you
Right,
put
but
all
one
the
other
money
good-
towards a
one other
project.
thing about not doing it under the bond, Tim, we wouldn't have all the additional burden of issuance, the non-construction costs for issuance. So that's about a 20% reduction in our costs. So if you have a $25 million bond, if we cut out that 20% for issuance, that would take us down to 20 million. That's a $5 million savings by
You
doing
get
it
to
as part
write
of the
off
rate.
your, if you're lucky, you get to write off your taxes every year, the taxes that you are accrued from each taxing agency, whereas you don't get to write off your water bill.
And how many people would we have a problem collecting $400 a month from for a water bill?
Amen.
Well, but a
Well,
more reasonable amount would be 100. So if
100 or
you added
125.
you're getting over $1 million
we all
a year.
heard from Gerald. The reason that Gerald voted against the bond was because it was too much. Where's Mark Robin? I want to hear why he voted against it.
Mark is actually in Peru right now, I believe.
Our
He's been
board member is not there.
he's been I think he's been flying this month. So
Hey,
And
when
one
you
thing I
talk with
would
him,
like to,
would you ask him to address that as to why he voted against the bond?
we're going to try to schedule a town hall meeting tonight when the board can actually discuss it on this meeting we're having tonight. We're going to vote on when we're going to have a town hall meeting or if we're going to, and I would hope Mark would be there. I don't know what his schedule is, but I'm sure he'd try to be available. So
Okay, well maybe
Julie Jack
send someone
Kurtzinger.
in as a proxy for him.
Okay,
Go
this,
ahead,
this
Jen.
is Suzanne.
Oh.
Hey, this is Suzanne Courier. Can I get a moment in?
Sure, go ahead, Suzanne.
Okay, good deal. I wanted to double check to find out on the board, is anybody an engineer or financial specialist?
Julie's a CPA.
Was, but,
Okay. But we have
up until-
specialists that,
up until November of 2020.
but we have
Yeah.
specialists that we hired, correct?
That's correct.
And
I
why
knew- I
did we
knew
hire
that.
these specialists?
To advise us to do what the district needed to have done, to see what needed to be done and what didn't need to be done. Because
Okay, so on one,
apparently we weren't getting that advice in the past. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in now.
okay, and then my next
I
question would be,
with that opinion.
wait, my next question would be, please, if we go with something like we vote in November, we've immediately lost, what, 8-9 months?
Correct.
And at that point, we would have to actually get another election, one, or a loan out, a private loan out, or we actually raise the charges for the water bill. My question is, from one of the engineers, can we wait 2 years before we start these repairs? How long do we have to wait before River Plantation starts sinking, which it obviously is with the amount of sinkholes throughout the neighborhood? Any answers?
As the board engineer, this is a question for me. As my tours of the district and understanding of past occurrences have happened, it sounds like the sewer is already starting to run down the street, which is more than a red flag. Sinkholes are starting to occur on a repetitive basis, which only leads to the assumption that a catastrophic failure is already in the works. And should another sort of Harvey-esque storm come through that would affect back up into the channels, the collapse of them is definitely possible. So with the increased rate of major storms happening for the drainage, along with the information I've been told about sanitary issues and just my basic inspection of the district, and talking with the general manager, I would say that 2 years is we're already pushing it. We're already behind the curve, in my professional opinion.
And if we have a catastrophic disaster, one, would the EPA be involved?
So when sewage leaks from the manhole, the TCEQ is supposed to be notified. I do not know if this occurred the last time it happened on New Year's, is what it sounds like from my understanding. This continuation results in enforcement by the TCEQ, which causes financial penalties to the district, as well as a potential that the EPA could get involved with the release of human waste within the streets, and it's a major public health hazard. So the last thing you want is this to hit the news media. Should this do it?
And since it's already started to happen, how long have you been doing this, sir?
I've been doing this 8 years.
Okay, so you're an expert. 8 years. I don't
Yes,
know if anybody on the board has 8 years, but it sounds like you might know what you're talking about. And personally, on a personal note, for someone who lives in RP and has lived here for 13 years, I don't want to see it get any worse. We have to do something, and we have to do it now. It has not been kept up. If it had been kept up, we would not have a problem with a catastrophic possibility. I mean, we shouldn't even be here. So waiting more and longer, and people that are not engineers making judgments and not listening to what the experts have to say, this does not make any sense at all to me. We need to go with what the experts say.
So
That's
Taylor,
all I
I have
have
a
to
question
say.
for you.
Ma'am, could I respond to you?
Robert, hang on for just
Go
a
ahead.
second.
Sure.
Taylor, I have a question for you. Has the engineering report included anything, or even the operations report included anything in the last several months about sewer running down the street?
No, sir, I have had no reports of sewage running down their street, but I would like to also emphasize that I didn't know about a violation that occurred over the last year, in which enforcement has been enacted as of February of this year for the wastewater treatment facility.
Gerard, I
Can
think
somebody
I
tell us
can
what the
supply you with
violation
pictures of the sewage that it was actually Christmas Eve. And I don't know if Mike Rebar's on here or not, but he is the one that contacted me, and it was beyond our scope of being able to fix it. And we had to call in another private company to fix the issue. Christmas Eve, it was running down, I believe it was Stonewall Jackson.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, Julie. So the comment from the public was, should we rely on the engineers? And my point was, I haven't heard as a board member, I haven't heard from the engineers that we have sewer running down the street.
Okay, can someone tell us what the violations with the EPA were previously that they were talking about early on in the call?
These violations were for the TCEQ, the Texas Board Commission on Environmental Quality. They were for an excess of ammonia within your plant that exceeded the license permit that the plant has. This happened over 4 quarters, so an entirety of a year in which these happened, in which results in enforcement action by the TCEQ.
and just, I think that's Betty's voice, but just to be clear, the board had no idea of these issues until last week. So,
Robert, did you have
Well, who's
another question
responsible for that?
for me?
that is the operator.
That's all right.
And who's the operator?
No, the operator, which is Richard
I would,
in this case.
with regards to a comment I wanted to make a while ago, was the $511,000 that were taken out of the general maintenance expenses was was to be used for section 1 relining of the sewer system. As I understand it, I could be corrected, but that's money that's been taken away from the rehabilitation that was anticipated for the time that it was done. That was 2 years ago, I believe. So y'all might check that out because
That
we
money
paid
was
extra
taken
money.
from-
We
Robert,
paying
that money
extra
was
sewer
taken
fees.
from the reserves. It was not
Well,
taken, it was not
it was-
earmarked for any
As
projects.
I understand, it was dedicated because we're paying extra on our sewer fees. And
That's
they
correct, but
accumulated
those
over
projects-
time to get relining in our section 1, and it hadn't happened.
Okay, can you tell me who told you that? Because that $511 came out of our reserve funds. The board voted on it. The part of section 1 was already done with the lining. That project had been done.
Okay.
Part of section 1.
Well, part of it, but not all of it.
That's correct.
And that project has been completed.
That project, that's correct. That project had been completed. Everything that was going to be
Well,
done has been done.
Thank you for that correction. I appreciate it. I don't want to have bad information, but I didn't want to know that there was money taken away. And that money in reserve is what would keep us afloat that we can't right now do. That's there on Charleston Park.
So $500,000, Robert, let's put it in perspective.
It's 511 plus legal fees, which is about 800,000.
All right. 800,000 when you're talking about a community, it's not a home. It's a community. Okay. You're dealing with 940 connections. Okay. $800,000, $500,000, whatever, is a drop in the bucket for costs. Okay. So can we go on to, does anyone else in the public have a comment? I just don't want a couple of people monopolizing. Does anyone else have a comment?
Yes. No, I think you're doing a good job, Julie. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's the other
I'm not
person?
through.
Who is
Jack
this?
Kurtzinger.
Okay. Go ahead, Jack.
Jack. All right. I've been thinking about what to say, and I thought about this recent regime change in Washington. And the so-called new regime is blaming the old regime for everything that ails the country. They wish to spend trillions of dollars to overcome these ails. It sounds very similar to what we're hearing tonight.
Well, Jack, I will tell you, I have been on the board for 3 years, so Tim and I are part of that old regime.
Not quite 3 years, hon. Not quite 3 years yet.
Okay, next month, 3 years.
Don't call her hun. She's not a hun.
And your math was wrong a while ago. It is $100. Anyway.
Wait a minute.
May I finish?
Sure.
No. All right. The legal and engineering expenses for the period 2010 to 2018 totaled $218,000. The engineering and legal expenses totaled between 2018 and February of this year $504,000. As a property owner and an engineer, a professional engineer, I might add, of 48 years experience, not 8, I was privy to the information that the board had for the 12 years that I was a board member. The sinkholes are things that are going to happen no matter what the age might be. Yes, we can prevent them by CIPP, and that was proposed in the 5-year budget that was presented in 2018. If you'll notice at the bottom of a handout that you get every day or every meeting, you have some projected projects. One of them was to do that, and the cost of those projects is much less than what the engineering firm has projected here. The addition to that is that the board went ahead and approved an eminent domain lawsuit on the suit and has cost us thus far roughly $200,000 in legal fees and over $500,000 in money that's in the registry of the court. The matter is still pending, and both parties have been ordered to mediation. An item that I've not found mentioned is the estimated cost to oversee and maintain that park. What's that going to cost? Proposition B is for about $2 million in bonds for the park, and will add 8 to 9 cents per $100 property valuation to your bill, an approximate 25% over your current
homes by
RP,
doing the eminent domain. You say
RP
property
MUD
homes.
tax. The
One at a
projects
time,
and
please.
their estimated cost by the newly hired engineering firm is being used to justify the $25 million Proposition A bonds. As a professional engineer, I commiserate with the engineering firm, as I believe they were given a dollar number to justify, and did the best they could in the time frame they were given. Most items are inflated in cost and personal preference equipment and ideas implemented. The demolition of water well number 1 is ludicrous. The engineering proposal presented is for about $16 million in bonds, which will cost $34 million over the projected 30-year payback period. In other words, it costs $2 for every dollar spent. Additionally, EPUD owns a large percentage of the sewer treatment plant, some of the sewer lines, drain lines, and ditches. RPMUD has been put on notice that any expenditures or increased fees must be approved prior to implementing. That's all I have to say.
Okay, Jack, I have a couple of comments. One, yourself and Tim and I were both on the old board. We were neglectful for not realizing what was happening out here. I will also hold the old engineering firm neglectful for what has happened in this subdivision, in this community. Okay, there's enough blame to go around for everybody. Okay, second of all, EPUD does own part of the wastewater treatment plant. After I received the notice that I was going to present to the board at our regular meeting next 2 weeks, okay, it is in their packets for them to see. Okay, I'm wondering when EPUD is going to build their own wastewater treatment facility, since they're going to refuse to pay for their costs for ours. When exactly, give me a date that theirs is going to be ready to go, that we can stop this agreement that they say they're going to stop. Second of all, the other thing is, if the costs increase, they state they're going to pay the old costs. If our costs decrease, are they still going to pay the old costs, or are they going to want the new costs that decreased? Because they can't have it both ways. They can't demand something and then want the other.
Yeah, I can't speak for EPUD. All I was doing was just stating a fact.
You made a statement. You made a statement. First of all, I'd like to know how you were made aware of the fact that we were put on notice.
EPUD told me.
Okay.
Because I consulted for them on another matter.
Okay. So
I'm also a consultant, and that's the problem you brought up. You and Tim were not and do not have the knowledge that I have in order to do, and you made your own opinions.
Then you know what, Jack?
I made an engineering decision.
If
you were making an emotional decision.
If you're more educated than us, then I put more blame on you. I put more blame.
Pardon?
I put more of the blame for the condition of this district on you then. If you hold yourself more educated than Tim and I, then I put the majority of the blame for the condition of this community on you.
Hoorah.
Well, I'll accept that blame from the standpoint that I don't know of any sewers or any sinkholes.
Would you like me to give you addresses? I have pictures.
Pardon?
I have pictures and I have addresses. And you were
those
made
pictures
aware.
are older. and they have already been repaired.
They
You
have
know
been
that.
backfilled. They have been backfilled, and they are opening up again. And you were made
That's
aware
your-
of that because the attorneys sent you the pictures when it happened. And the sewage problem on Christmas Eve, you were no longer on the floor. So you were not made aware of it.
Excuse me, we get back on our own venue is what we're here for.
Okay.
I don't. I'm not going to answer that. It
Okay.
doesn't.
Do I have any comments from anyone else in the public? Any questions from the public?
Yes, I have an observation, another question. And that has, since no one else has anything else to say, have
Who's
there been,
speaking?
when you
Who's
set,
speaking?
Robert McElroy, whenever
Thank
y'all
you.
sit down, typically in a large corporation or an organization that's has to report to shareholders, they're going to sit down and look at their options. What can we do to lower the cost? And have y'all determined, and I haven't heard in your meetings that y'all have identified alternative approaches. One is what can we do to raise the water rates and sewer rates and get the cost under control? And then therefore have all the money go into the repairs here, not pay $1, spend $2 to get $1 worth of work done. So the options, the alternatives, you troubleshoot and you sit down, not just the board here, you pull in knowledge experts, people that have their skin in the game. And one of them, and there's at least, Julie, there are 3 people in here for sure that are, Jack spoke, he's a chemical and petroleum engineer. There's another person in here I know y'all are at odds with right now, but he definitely has this interest. He's a mechanical engineer. He has his own company. He
Who
has
is that?
patents.
Oh, okay.
You know.
Okay.
Okay,
Who?
Mr. Blackburn. And you also Max Mahaffey. He's
I'm
a
not
business.
sure. I'm not
You're
sure
back
Blackburn would be good since we're in a lawsuit with him right now.
I know that. That's why I say. But once you get that cleared up, you get number 2, that Proposition B passed, and get that out of the way, and then buy into them, say, we need your help. Or and also Max Mahaffey. I've met him. He owned Gulo Ford. He's a successful businessman. He's going to look at the bottom line, what we can do to get the best answer, because this neighborhood has a lot of professional people that are retired, and that's the point. We're on retired income right now, and we want to minimize. We want to get the best we can for the money we're going to put on the table.
Robert, we're looking into that, and we're going to be discussing that at the May meeting. Okay. But second of all, this is my personal opinion. Mr. Kurtzinger and Mr. Mahaffey put out a letter back in November stating that they knew that the district was in disrepair and that they knew that the facilities were over 50 years old. I'm not sure I would consider them experts.
I would
other
think,
than in the fact that they let it get to this point.
well, that's where they give them a chance to find out what were their thoughts on how to get out of this situation. They have a skin in the game from their, as you pointed out, the blame. They have some skin in the game to try to find a solution for this neighborhood. And I'm not looking for, I think there needs to be expert help that we have here that we look at as well. Include them in your team, and you have a board meeting. I see the way the
presidents for 25 years and they didn't.
I see the way the board, who would mute them? Please mute them. Who would? And I would say, I see how the board operates. I mean, in terms of the type of meeting construct, when you're into a brainstorming, creative systems type design solution, that's what you're looking for, or solutions. You get into a meeting and you have a facilitator who gets everybody's ideas together and puts it on the board and works through the scenarios of what you can do to come up with different solutions and alternatives and look for that minimum cost. You get it done with the least amount of risk to the health and safety of this community. And I don't think that's been done. That's the way I look at it right now, because as you pointed out, you brought in an engineering firm and they're dedicated to what they want, what to be done. No question about them, but they don't know the neighborhood like we know it. The people that live in here, as y'all pointed out, the sinkholes, and that includes Richard too. I don't know how much other than just Richard is involved into identifying what he has seen as solutions in the past, and he will be a big contributor. So there's people that you can include that are stakeholders you can conclude in your team, and that's what I suggest you do.
Okay, do we have any more comments from the public? Okay, as a board, then this is for the board members, can we, and the attorneys and the engineer and the financial person, Lauren, can we do we need to schedule a town hall meeting for next week, one day, one evening? Do we want to, do we not want to?
Julie, this is Gerard. I think we definitely need a town hall meeting. I think that we need to make sure that the community is aware of the vote and what's, generally the implications and what's being asked. Absolutely think there needs to be one.
Okay.
I agree.
All right.
Tom?
Do we think we need, is Tom muted still? No. Tom, are you,
No.
you good? You on board?
No, I think we need a meeting as well. I just don't want to see it degrade into one of these kind of matches that it seems to be going here.
Yeah, I think having structure around it, Tom, is absolutely a good idea. I guess one other thing that I'd like to ask for, Julie, is that it be well advertised, not just on the website or just quietly mentioned on Nextdoor. Can we get some signs and put them at the entrance and make sure folks are aware of the town hall?
Well, if we're going to have the town hall next week, that's kind of short time to get.
I was going to say, we're going to be paying premium price if we can get them by next week.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a little bit. I mean, you're probably talking maybe a few hundred, not a lot of signs, just some quick yard signs printed up.
A few
And
hundred
not
yard
a little bit.
signs?
Huh?
A few $100 signs?
No, a few $100 total.
Okay.
Why don't you just get with the CIA? They can have them printed up, and I don't, for that big sign. No, we don't have the big sign.
No, we don't have the big sign anymore.
Well, we could get something like they had for the Easter thing. I don't think that was that expensive.
Okay.
Why would you need several signs? Just one sign?
You don't need several, only one.
Well, one, at least two, one at each entrance, right?
The back entrance is EPUD.
We don't.
though.
Where are you going to put the one at the back entrance?
So why don't we put one where, let's see, we have an RPMUD district sign at the front of the entrance, right? Where you come into it?
The big decorative sign? The big brick sign?
White and blue sign, I think, right outside the gate.
It's not there anymore. Oh, outside the gate.
I think it is.
We don't have a sign up there. There's that sign up there got hit by a car.
I thought I saw it in the last couple of days.
Across from the gazebo, it's been down since the
No, not the one by the gazebo or across from the gazebo. No, this is farther out. And I guess it marks the beginning of the district.
Right in front of the
Richard's not on the line, is he?
No.
He would.
Richard's not here tonight.
But in any case, two signs, where you enter the district. I guess there's one from the back of the subdivision where we transition from East Plantation to RPMUD.
That would be on Stonewall Jackson, basically.
Well, it'd be on Stonewall Jackson, then it would be down further on
Stephen F. Austin.
So you'd have to have a
so
couple
maybe
back.
it's 5 signs. I don't know, Julie, but wherever they are, I mean,
my opinion is we don't need
where people enter the district. That would be my proposition.
We don't need to spend the extra money to do two. We put the one in the front that notifies everybody that go in and out of there every day.
What about people go in and out of the back, Tom?
They don't, very many people go that way. I guarantee you.
Let's not quibble over the quantity right now. Let's just agree that we need some signs.
So,
I agree.
Yep. So here's the problem. Whatever night we can, are we going to have it at the MUD office? Are we going to have it at the church so we can socially distance? Are we going to have it virtually? How are we going to have it?
I'm open to any of those. I would rather it be in person, either at the MUD office or the church if that's possible, but not online.
Well,
I would vote for the church if possible. We get more people in there.
well, the problem with the church is I think we're limited on nights, and if we did it, I know we could do it on Monday nights. But that doesn't give us enough time for Monday, with today being
notice,
Thursday.
yeah.
The following Monday.
But why don't you see if Jerry can get us a later day in the week? Maybe he could do a Thursday night.
Well, we got absentee voting that starts too. We're up against the wall on that.
Yeah. Let me see what night. Let me see if I can.
Can it be the week after?
Let me see if I can find. Okay, so I can't get a response, but so do we want to vote? We want to have an in-person meeting one evening next week at the church. Is that correct? As soon as we can find out what night the church is available.
Only thing I'd add to that, Julie, is well advertised.
Okay.
That's an ambiguous term, right? I think it needs to be advertised, but I mean, you're overkilling it. We want to do it.
Okay. So, do I have a motion that we're going to do that, and then as soon as we find out what nights the church is available?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Make a
No,
motion.
we can't do it. We know Wednesday's out, right?
Yeah.
For the church.
Yeah.
Why don't we just make a motion that if the church has a night available next week, that we accept that and use that night, advertise what we can on the social media, make a sign for at least the front, at minimum, and go from there. We don't know what night it would be, but I would put that in the form of a motion if possible.
Okay. All right.
I agree.
Okay. So, Tom, are you making that motion?
Yeah, I thought I did.
All right. So, do I
Julie,
have a
before we
second?
vote on that, can we have the MUD admin office as a fallback if the church is not available? Part of the motion?
That would probably be a good amendment.
Sure.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Can't get that people in there.
All right. Do I have a second?
I second Tim.
Okay. All in favor?
Tom,
Julie, aye.
Tim, I.
Gerard, aye.
Tom?
I thought I said,
Oh,
aye.
Okay. All right. So we'll schedule the meeting next week as soon as we can find out what night the church is available, or we'll have it at the MUD office. So, okay. Anything else?
I think we're good.
All right.
Julie, do we want to talk any about the structure? I mean, it was mentioned, I think, by Tom that we, might want to make sure that we do some structure. Are we going to go back to to the previous agenda that you'd put together with the photographs and the letter and all that stuff, and then have I don't know. It was still kind of confusing to me whether the board would speak before or after. I know that I want to speak after the engineers and the financial advisors and have a chance to comment after legal.
Okay. I would like to go first. So, and then we can do I have it here somewhere, the order we were going to do it in. So we can do that, then we can do the engineers, then we can do the financial advisor, and then we can do the attorneys. And then Gerard, you want to speak?
Yeah, and I think, any of the other board members as well, if they want.
Okay. Okay. You can speak after me if you'd like. I mean, that's any other board members that can speak at the beginning or at the end, wherever you want. I don't care. So.
And then will there be Q&A at the end, or?
Yes.
And Q&A during it? I guess that's required, isn't it?
No.
You're going to keep the crowd quiet.
I was going to say, I would do it all at the end.
Davis, is that okay? Or Paul, can we hold it all till the end?
Can you hold what the
public comments and
questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
The board can set
you
the
need to
structure.
receive public comment, but you can absolutely hold it till the end.
Right.
And frankly, most boards do. So have a fixed period of public comment during meetings.
Can we limit the comments to the issue at hand of being the bond election or questions on the bond election and not let it degrade like it did tonight?
You
I agree.
Absolutely can. We can come up with a way to administer it if you think that time limits are appropriate or anything along those lines. I mean, in the same way that you would frequently see at a city council meeting, that is permissible. So it's at the discretion of the board.
I would say we need
to thank our public for tonight also.
Not many left.
But I have a question. One more question I just thought of. This has to do with the engineering numbers. Do they include the 41% for East Plantation, or if East Plantation's not in the program, do we add that 41% into their total cost for where it applies?
It's actually a 50-50 split, but
whatever it is, yeah.
Go ahead, Taylor.
The 10-year CIP assumes that the district would only pay its share. The cost estimate that was included in the packet further down in the packet for each one of those projects is the entirety of the sum.
Okay, thank you. Might make that clear in your presentation what the numbers are in your spreadsheet. I think if you show that, that's good.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All right. I'll let y'all. We'll find out what nights the church is available next week. And
You got to vote.
Yes, get a vote.
Vote to adjourn.
Okay. Vote to adjourn. Okay.
Tim,
good meeting. Thank you, guys. Good meeting.
Gerard, aye.
Okay. Julie, aye.
Okay.
All
Night, guys.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Julie, when can we get the tour?